So this morning's class is a yin yang class, and we're actually going to start with the yang side first of all. And I got my props, a bolster and a block. And I'm going to start with a really bizarre one because we're going to start lying down on the floor. So I'm going to make sure that I've got enough room to the sides to put my arms out for a little bit later. And then I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes here. Chin on the back of the hands, legs lengthened out, bootlaces down. Going to roll the heels out a little bit. I want myself to sink down. So it takes a little time for the shoulders to kind of give and the spine to open up a little bit. Just gently rocking out the hips from side to side and trying to let everything loosen off. And then we'll move up slowly and come into Sphinx pose. So elbows are underneath the shoulders. I'm going to roll the shoulders back, lift the chest up and forwards, draw the belly in, press the thighs down, toes away. And still going to show you if I can get that heel rolling out, toe rolling in. Lifting the chest and pressing down into the forearms as well to help with the lift. So it's strong across the back of the shoulders, drawing the belly in. So almost starting to lift the belly away from the floor. I'm actually keeping the pelvis firmly pressed down to the ground, but drawing that pelvis in. Be here for about a minute and a half. So you want to make sure that you've got enough effort to feel everything working, but not so much that you can't breathe. There's a little happy place somewhere in the middle of that. And again, there's kind of like a micro wobble in the body, just kind of lengthening out. I find it easier to do that. Get a finger space in the lower back. And broadening across the front of the chest as well. And then we can come back down to the floor. So we're going to take a shoulder stretch now. So I'll do it to my right side. I'm going to bring the feet together, take the right hand out. Left hand is kind of underneath the shoulder, elbow towards the sky. I'm going to roll onto my right side, let the head come down. And I'm trying to stack my hips 90 degrees. So if you kind of roll too far back, it's more stable because more of your buttock is on the floor. You want to be a little bit more onto the thigh. And to add to that, we're going to flex the toes towards the knees and lengthen the heels away. And then once you've done that and you feel steady, I'm going to see if we can just take the calf muscle of that bottom leg off of the ground. So it just lifts. So you're looking for half an inch to an inch, something like that. Palms facing down and the outstretched arm. Hopefully starting to be able to get the shoulders 90 degrees to the floor as well, and shoulders and chest. If you're looking towards your toes, then your body is sort of getting into a little bit of a curve. You ideally want to be looking to the side of the mat. And we'll let the legs come down gently and slowly roll back onto the chest. Wriggle the fingers out, and we'll make our way over to the opposite side. So first fail of the morning, didn't quite get the bolster in the right place. Take a little breath from there when you're ready, and we'll roll over to the other side. First part is trying to lengthen the legs away, flexing the feet, belly draws in a little. You might notice some differences between one shoulder and the other, and also how much work you have to do to balance as well on that hip bone. We're starting to engage the leg muscles and lengthen them away. And then we're going to see if we can get a little lift of the legs, just a touch. So I'm not really putting an awful lot of weight into the hand in front of me. I'm just using it there as to help with the balance, really. Rolling the shoulders back a little bit again, thinking about where the body is. Can I get 90-degree flat to the floor? Rolled off a little bit there. And then we'll ease our way back down. And just wriggle out fingers a little bit. Feels good. So I'm going to come back onto the mat, so I'll just move myself around a little bit. And I'm going to take the hands out, a good shoulder distance apart. Press the hands down into the floor. So I'm starting to lift the ribs a little bit. Bottom rib is still touching the floor. Feet are in that same position. They're hip distance apart, heels rolled out. I'm going to take my left hand underneath and out towards the right side. So I want it 90 degrees to my body. And then I'm going to exhale and slowly let myself rest down onto my chest. Now we're trying to keep the chest as square to the ground as we can. There is more than a little bit of a tendency to roll out to the side. So you're going to have to keep the body lifting a little bit on the left side. If you want to, you can bring that front hand in and just place it underneath your forehead, or you can use a brick, or you can just leave the arm lengthened out. I tend to do that. And as the shoulder eases open, you'll find that you get gradually closer to the floor. So it's also affecting the chest muscles as well. Quite a lot of sinking feeling. And then we come to lift ourselves out. So going to walk the front hand in a little bit because I left it out there. Press that hand down into the floor to help lift. Come back up. Slowly extract that left hand out, which will take a couple of seconds to come back to life. And then when you're ready, you're going to lift up. Take the right arm over, nice 90 degrees. And then let yourself ease down, nice and gradually. I'll take a couple, maybe 3 or 4 breaths, in fact, to ease into that shoulder. Again, I'm just trying to lift the right side of the body a little bit so the chest stays square and flat to the floor. And let's see if we can start to lift out. So again, I'm going to walk that front hand a little bit, press down slowly, let the body lift as well. Take the arms back out, a little wriggle. And then I bring my hands down towards the bottom of the ribs, letting the chin come to the ground as well. Still got the bootlaces down. So elbows are nice and high. I'm actually going to start to squeeze the elbows together a little bit whilst I'm flat to the floor. And then I'm going to lift up into low cobra. So just pressing the thighs down and lifting the chest forwards and up. And exhaling back down. Aiming to keep that bottom rib on the floor and the heels turned out a little. And the elbows squeeze in just a little bit as I lift. Relax again as you come down. I can hear from my feet squeaking along the floorboards. Not sure if the microphone's going to pick that up. I can assure you it's just my feet dragging along the floor that little bit, not my back that's squeaking. Try and keep the head in line with the rest of the spine. So being conscious not to look too far forwards. Sometimes referred to as letting your eyes follow your heart. Still lifting. I have noticed that as I get tired, the heels start to roll in and toes out, which is the opposite to what I'm trying to do. So I end up focusing more on my heels than anything else. So if you're finding the same, that's okay. Sharing the experience. I'm going to bring the hands further forwards again, and I'm just going to turn the palms inwards so the thumbs are up towards the sky. Now on the inhale, is going to lift the chest. And then on the exhale, lift the hands. Come back down to the floor. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Inhale up. So hands on chest, eyes to the floor. Exhale down. Breath in. Breath out. Inhale. And exhale. Lift on the inhale. And exhale. Inhale up. And exhale down. Cool. So as we bring the hands down alongside the body and lift ourselves gently away from the floor, just peeling ourselves back up onto all fours for some cat-cow. So taking a little bit of time for that spine to adjust to the load, making sure the hands are nicely spread out, so a big gap between little finger and thumb, knees underneath the hips, and then we're ready. Inhaling forwards, rolling the chest up towards the sky, shoulders back, tailbone up. Exhaling, letting the spine lift, so a little tilt in the pelvis to help, drawing the belly in. Nice and slow, might be slower or faster than me, but in your body, as slow as you can make this. We're also pressing the shins and the hands down to the floor. So we are pushing away on that lift up. So a very smooth, slow slide and glide, just warming up the muscles and the joints. So giving the discs plenty of time to acknowledge the movement pattern. You can change it a little bit and start to take that into some barrel rolls. So I'm just going to take that out to the side, roll it across. You can, by all means, bend the elbows a lot more than I do. I tend to keep mine straight. That feels good in my body, but you can do the whole bending of the elbows as well. The hips move out to the side, the shoulders, head kind of locks from side to side. And take that in the opposite direction a few times. And then take the knees nice and wide, sitting onto the heels. Just going to bring the hands back in underneath the body for a quick cat's pause and turn the fingers outwards. And a little rock from side to side, see how that feels, and then see if I can turn fingers towards me, heels of the hand away. Now you want to be far enough away that you can still get the heel of the hand on the floor. And maybe roll the shoulders back a little bit. And we'll draw the belly in as well and send the tailbone down. So we can do more than just the wrists. And then we're going to lift up. So just slowly untangle the hands. Maybe push them once or twice the opposite way. Just rolling over. Getting a little extra stretch in. And then we'll come back into all fours. I'm going to thread the needle. So I'm going to take the left hand up towards the sky on the breath in. We'll fold that underneath and try and get the shoulder near to the ground. I'm going to walk my top hand forwards until it feels a comfortable place. And then I'm going to press down lightly into the hand so I can take some of the weight out of the neck and the shoulder that are on the ground and sort of helping lifting a little bit. Drawing the belly in, pressing the shins and the bootlaces down. Try and lengthen the tailbone away. And then I'm going to release. I'm going to walk the fingers back in, press down, come back onto all fours, rearrange, take the right hand up, that underneath. And again, let that top hand walk out and then press down a little. So you can feel the whole of that arm and shoulder working. You take a little weight out of the neck, draw your belly in, press your shins down, tailbone away. It's a lot of active work going on here, a lot of effort being put into the body, not just simply curling around. No, it's kind of like a mid press up feeling. And we'll hand back in. Let ourselves press and lift. Back onto all fours. So I'm going to move into Dandasana. And I'm going to have that block fairly close as well. I'm going to use it straight away, but just want it nearby. To wriggle the flesh out a little bit in the derriere, sitting up as tall as we can. Hands out to the side a little bit, lifting up, lengthening out through the heels, starting to gradually flex the feet towards me. Make an effort to roll those, let those shoulders kind of fall back. I don't know if you can see that kind of little movement in the screen there, whether that's going to show, but letting the shoulders roll back a couple of inches, well, a couple of half inches on each side. And there you go. So we'll take the arms out to the side, palms facing up. Inhale the hands slowly as I exhale, as best I can, directly above my shoulders. So the shoulder width apart, palms facing in, and then exhale back slowly. So exaggerated the length of the breath, just the once, and then we're going to twist. So I'm going to twist to the left side. And I'm going to try and tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit. So I'm going to lift the back of the pelvis up and drop the pubic bone down a little bit more towards the ground. You will feel that one leg has sort of moved forwards of the other because it has. That's what happens when you twist. And we're going to try and draw the rear shoulder across behind us towards the other side of the mat, but we're not using that hand behind us to pull ourselves round. It's coming from the core. Keeping that tilt in the pelvis, a little bit forwards as well. And then we'll release. We'll take it to the opposite side. So just lengthening out. Tilt the pelvis, it gives you a feeling of a little bit more height. Then you can start to draw the shoulder blade back behind you. So it feels a little bit like you're drawing the shoulder blade in towards the center of your body, the spine. But if you can, think about visualizing, sort of picking your shoulder blade up and sucking it back over to the other side of the mat. We'll release from there. And then we'll take the feet out comfortable distance. And we're going to churn. So we're going to keep the hands the same height from the floor and just allow ourselves to make these tiny little circles. So we're leaning forwards a little bit, leaning back a little bit, leaning out to the side a little bit. Forward and the backward movement come from tilting the pelvis. So rather than worrying about where your arms are or how big your circles are, just imagine that you're stirring your pelvis around. And you will get a feeling of sitting bones lifting. And you're trying to keep your spine directly over your pelvis the whole time. So if you are managing to roll your pelvis around a little bit, you'll get circles. And we'll go the other way. And we've got deliberate bend in the elbows here so that it doesn't feel quite so strong on the shoulders. If you leave the arms right out here, they get tired, deltoids very quickly. Lovely. And I'm going to bring the feet back together. So I'm going to start to use that block. And it's a very straightforward seated twist. So left foot comes under, knee points forwards. That's out towards the hip. Right leg comes across. I'm going to use the hand to assist to bring the foot as far back to me as possible to get the knee high flat to the floor. I'm going to tilt the pelvis forwards again to get that little bit of lift in the body. Left arm comes up, wraps over towards the right, and I'm going to press that arm and leg just a little together. Back hand comes back just for a little bit of balance and to help keep tilting the pelvis forwards. And try to relax the bottom leg as well. And then I release out of that. I'll take it to the opposite side. Just bringing the foot round and across. Little press of the pelvis forwards. Lift, rotate round. And then maintain that little bit of forward movement in the pelvis, but still trying to relax the bottom leg. Quite often I find that if I tilt the pelvis forwards a little bit, the bottom leg turns on. And I'll release out of that as well. So taking the legs back out, a little shake. Kind of Janu Shishasana, bring the right heel into the groin, knee out to the side, square the hips, turn the thigh in, a little bend in the knee. Hands on the shin. You can try and keep the chest square to the front of the mat. So sometimes you can kind of feel yourself rock off to the side a little bit. So square as you can, and then draw the chest forwards. It's pressing down into the hands very lightly on this front shin. Belly in. And then release. So same thing, the opposite side, remembering that once you're into the pose, you can press the heel down a little more and draw the hip back, as well as getting that lift forwards. With all those sort of combined efforts going on, we're trying to get that sort of meat in the middle so we can feel the abdominals drawing in towards each other. And then I'll release from there. Now I'm going to take this, it looks very similar to the previous pose, but there's a lot more working space. I'm going to take my right foot back and I'm trying to take it towards the outside edge of this hip so that the knee points up. If your knee kind of rolls out to the side and you're resting on the side edge of the foot, you need to move your foot a little further out. Ideally, the foot points forwards, but for some people, it's naturally going to twist. And then we're going to take a little breath, lift the body up again to that tilt of the pelvis. We're going to lean forwards. The left hand is come to the floor for a little bit of support. And it's going to start to turn the body gently towards the left side. I'm keeping my arm lengthening ahead down the center line of the mat and pressing that right knee into the back of my arm. Leaning forwards a little bit to help with that. And then releasing from that leg. So this leg does most of the work. There's a little bit of compression in the spine as well, where you're getting that rotation from. So again, just take a little time to get your foot to a happy place. Lifting up. leaning forwards, taking the arm through, getting the armpit and the shoulder together, and then turning a little towards the right, lengthening the hand forwards, squeezing the back of the leg in, front leg, toes towards sky, lengthening the heel out. And then we'll release from there as well. And then we'll come into down dog. So I'm just going to tuck the toes underneath. Move the block out for a second. Hands come to the floor, tuck toes underneath, and stretch that out a little bit. So we'll make a great effort to stretch the fingers and hands out. I'm actually going to lift the fingers away from the floor and press the knuckles down. And then try to press the heels towards the back of the mat. You'll feel a slightly different stretch in the back of the calves and the ankles because of that. And lifting the hips up and back as far as I can in time. I'm going to release back down to the floor. So I'm going to come down to all fours. I'm spinning my feet out up to the right side. Starting to sit back and slide the block underneath the bottom. And then I'm going to take a little adjustment and bring my right shin bone to run through the arch of my left foot. So my toes are pointing back, and we're in deer pose. So more sort of classical version of it. Both knee bones are touching the floor. And I'm trying to drop this right hip down to the ground. So I'm just going to sit here for a moment. Think about letting that drop. Now, if you do need to put the fingertips out on the floor, by all means do. I know when it feels like your spine is sort of curling out to the side a lot, you know, there's a lot of tension in the body and you want to try and remove that. So using a brick underneath the hand, if your hand doesn't reach the floor, can make a big difference. So just trying to ease the spine into the center. Let ourselves release from there. Bring the legs back out. And we'll just cross them over the opposite way. So this time I'm going to lean out to the right. Toes pointing backwards. Again, you might find it different one side of the body to the other. We'll try and sit here and relax. Let that sitting bone drop. There's a lot more space for it to drop on this side, that's for sure. So I've either got one very large buttock or the sitting bones are in a different place. Let ourselves release from this. So I'm just going to lean forwards. I'm going to move the block towards the front. Take the knees wide apart and come into a wide version of child's pose this time. So you can use the block for underneath the forehead. And then if it's comfortable, see how your neck feels, taking the hands towards your feet. And if it feels like it's too much strain on the back of the neck, that's not a problem. Just bring the hands back forwards and place them underneath the chin and the forehead so it feels a bit more controlled. Try and let everything sink down to the floor. Sorry, my glasses are getting in the way a little bit for that. And trying to get that very long, flat body. And if you struggle with that, you could use the bolster down the center line of the mat and lie on top of that, keeping the head supported on the bolster as well. That again helps lengthen out the spine. If you're able to get into a nice flat line here, then that's fine. And if you want to use the bolster, you can do. And letting the knees, and particularly deep inside the hips and the buttocks, relax as well. You feel them stretching out slowly. And we'll let ourselves lift up. Bring the knees back underneath. And we'll take a melting heart. So we'll take the hands forwards, but keep the hips over the knees. The hands are deliberately wider than the shoulders. And I'm going to try and let myself sink as low as I can to the ground. So I'm not going to hold myself, let the head come down and chest continues to drop. Now do try to keep the head facing down rather than turn it to the side. Relax the shoulders as much as you confidently can. You might even find coming onto the chin necessary. Now to come out of this, just push the fingertips into the floor and move the hips backwards a little bit until you feel the weight distribution change, and then you can move the hands a bit more quickly. I'm going to take the block again. I'm going to have it on edge, but flat to side down, if that makes sense. Lift the knees away from the floor. Bring the block in a little bit further towards me, comfortable distance. I'm going to press the heels down, lift the hips up, and let myself dangle. So you can have as much bend in the knees as you wish. The block underneath you wherever it feels useful to be. I've got quite long arms and my hamstrings feel relatively okay for me to just allow my fingers to be on the floor. Another way of doing this, which is more sort of the yin type, is to actually take hold of the elbows and make yourself a little cradle for the crown of the head. So you are drawing the shoulders back a little bit for most of us. Unless you've got shorter neck or short arms. And then we're just hanging here. You can sway a little bit from side to side if that feels good. If you sway from side to side and it doesn't feel good, I would recommend that you don't sway. Draw the belly in a little bit so that we can get a sense of dropping through the spine down to the floor. Nice soft relaxed neck. So you really want to hold that head in a position that is using the least amount of muscular work. And then we can release out of that. Just take that nice and slow. Walk the fingers forwards, come down onto the knees, and I'm going to swivel back down onto the bottom. Allow myself to have my left heel in towards the groin, knee out to the side, taking the right leg out and just letting that roll to wherever it wants to go. Nice relaxed leg. Take the hands forwards and then bring yourself into a forward fold. Now I find that as I do that, my hip rolls out to the side more, and that's fine. Just let it find its own place. A few people it will roll the opposite way, some people it will stay upright. I'm trying to just let the spine hang down, so we're not worried about length in the spine, it's letting the head hang as well. So you'll find that intensity in the spine grows as your head drops slowly. And if you find yourself rocking out excessively to the left-hand side, then you might want to just take your left hand a bit further out to stop you rolling over completely. Letting ourselves sink into all the joints and bones. As little resistance as you can. As you get deeper into the pose, you'll find that the body naturally tightens up, and then after about 5 or 6 breaths, eases again. Okay, then I'll lift slowly back up and cross over to the opposite side. And then again, just take the hands forwards, let yourself rock. Now, if you're using this video on a regular basis to rewatch and practice again, if you find that you've got hard floors like I have and the heels feel a bit tender in this pose, by all means get yourself a little flat towel, not too thick, and you can place it underneath the heel. So give it a little softness to look after yourself. Always remember to see if you can gradually let the back of the neck release and the head drop. The breathing feels quite compromised, so using the breath into the back of the shoulders. That is nice and relaxed. Remember, taking the hand out to the side a little more if you find yourself rolling excessively. Trying to look for a forwards journey. We'll roll ourselves gently back out of that. So this is where we're going to use our bolster, if you haven't used it already. It's called a rested Buddha pose, so you want this about midway down your mat. You can turn side on, and you're looking to have the bolster in the fleshy bit between your top of your hip, or top of the pelvis and the bottom of the ribs. So we're going to lie that bit over the center. You might need to adjust a little bit. And you might also want to bring the block around as well. I'll just leave it out in front here. And I'm going to slowly lie down over the bolster, so extending the top arm out. Now I've got the knees bent a little bit as well. You can lengthen them out, but bent knees are quite nice. And we're going to see if we can drop the head down onto that arm. And take the other hand out onto the hip. Lift that hand up towards the sky and float that over. So we've got one palm on top of the other. You can use a rolled up blanket, which will give you less of curvature in the spine. The buckwheat harder bolsters are going to give you the highest lift. But if you're a short person, that might just be a little bit too intense. Or short in the back anyway. And to come out of that, just move the top hand back in front, press down, and go right back up. Now you could just roll directly onto your second side, but for me to be able to watch the clock ticking by, I'm going to have to change ends. Remember, you're trying to get the fleshy bit right on the top. For me, my bottom hip is actually lifted off the floor. Roll myself over. Take that top arm down onto the hip. Get comfortable there on the rib. There we go. Second time lucky. And then lifting the hand up and over. And then we'll bring that top hand back in. Exhale to press up slowly. And we're going to move the bolster out of the way. We're going to come back down onto our bellies. Feet are on the center line and toes together, taking the right knee out to the side, 90 degrees to the body. And the shin follows the line of the mat, toes point out. And then we just allow ourselves to rest and turn the head to the same direction. And then ease down. Try and let shoulders and the hips sink to the floor. Again, as you relax into this pose, similar to the last pose, you might find you actually get more space and you might need to wriggle the shoulders around a little bit. Trying to let that groin get flatter to the floor. There's quite a big twist through the sacrum as that part of the spine that melts into the pelvis. And we'll bring the foot back on, slide that leg out, give it a little shake if you need to. And then we'll take the opposite side of that. So left leg goes out, toes turn off. We'll spend a couple of minutes here as well. Carefully bring the leg back on. I'm going to simply roll onto my spine for Shavasana. I've got my block ready. On the head, so nice and easy roll over. Feet go out to the corner edges of the mat. Close my eyes, just a little lick of the lips. Now hopefully everything feels nice and relaxed, but you can just wriggle that out a little bit. And hopefully you feel really sort of nice and long and flat against the floor. Like everything is being stretched out and opened up. The body's got lots of space to move into. And it's just easy being in your own body. And we'll begin to wriggle those fingers and toes. Wrists and ankles joining. Breathe a little deeper. Take a stretch. And slide the heels back in. Ease into a nice gentle hug. And a rock if that feels good. And then we'll roll carefully onto the right side. Take a breath in. Use the hands to press gently down to the floor to lift back up. Slowly into seated posture of choice. Sitting up nice and tall. Now, so let's come back into the room a little bit. And then we'll bring the hands into the heart as we close the eyes. We'll take a deeper breath here. Exhale the head gently. Belly draws in. Soft bow forms to close our practice. Inhale, letting the breath build us back up. Lifting the head and open the eyes. Namaste. Thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of yin and yang. See you soon.